check it out. What's it all about?
Welcome to Roseanne. This is our second episode of Roseanne. I am Zach Zichter, and
This is Jay Warren.
and the point of this podcast is to talk about what?
Well, we're talking about the series Roseanne
Okay.
and how awesome it is.
Right.
I think I've already converted you from being just like a mild fan to like an avid fan.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, just to help anybody that doesn't know, I'm not as familiar with the show as Jay Warren is. I've seen some episodes. I grew up with them, but you are a fanatic. You are an aficionado. You are an enthusiast.
I've seen this series all the way through countless times.
Right. Okay. So today's episode is what? What's it called?
It's called We're in the Money.
Oh, right. Okay, so it's We're in the Money, and that's the concept is that Dan gets an advance for a job because he does drywall. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. He gets $500 in advance. Yeah.
And they're trying to decide what to do with that $500.
Mm-hmm.
So before, I guess I do really want to talk about spoiler alerts. I think if you were going to follow along with this podcast, if you've never heard of Roseanne or haven't seen the show, you should watch the episode before you watch our podcast because we're going to talk about what happens in the episode.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So let's see. So we'll start the episode in the background. We'll talk a little bit about the episode, a little bit more about Roseanne and everything in general.
And this was something that we were talking about while we were watching this episode. This is something that's changed on TV is like the fucking intro themes, like intro songs.
Right.
Like in the 80s and 90s, they just went on and on and on. There's even like a video that you hate that makes fun of it. It's Too Many Cooks. That's the whole idea is just like
Right.
intro songs just used to take forever.
Yeah, that's true. I obviously what Friends took a really long time was like the whole song. I mean, maybe there was an abridged version of that Proclaimers. Is that who?
I think it's actually like something like the Bodines or something.
Okay,
that.
whatever. That intro is pretty long. This one isn't. Well, it looks like 52 seconds. Was there a cold open? Okay.
I think that, and I have all these on my. I told you I have all those on my laptop.
Right.
The original version is like a minute 17.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with like Cheers.
Yeah, but Cheers theme song I think is an exception because that's a really good song.
Well, and also that's another one that that's an abridged version that was made for radio at one point.
What?
Yeah, like there's like a 4-minute version. Of
Oh
that
right,
song.
yeah. You know, I've heard that song. Yeah.
And it's really weird. There's all kinds of weird lyrics in it.
Mm-hmm. But I will say this though, just because it's annoying now, it's because of the binge watching that happens. It's so accessible via Netflix or just online streaming, Hulu, whatever. So yeah, if you watch episodes back to back, it's like, why is this happening? But when you're,
why is this happening?
yeah, why is this so long? But if you're back in the 90s, 80s, you sit down and it's a chance to turn the TV on and get acclimated and get kind of in the mode of the show. I mean, that's probably obvious, but there was some shows that didn't do that. Wasn't Seinfeld? Did Seinfeld even have an intro? I think they just had him do a little stand-up for a while.
Well, I think there was like that intro theme.
But
yeah,
okay, that's true.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all it was, though. I don't think it was like a
And Frasier, I think, was really short too.
Yeah. The scrambled eggs and tossed salad or something like that. I remember that lyric.
That's at the end, though.
Yeah.
Scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
But that's at the end. That's not necessarily at the beginning. And you have your credits, and a lot of shows like this will have like a little coda where they do something funny, or have bloopers or whatever.
Yeah.
Have something that's not related to the main part of the show.
Every now and then, this show, like the episode will end with like an outtake.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. You can like that's the one thing I like about the show, and I don't think we've gotten far enough into it. Notice now. But you can just tell that everybody's having a lot of fun on set. Like, especially Roseanne. You can tell Roseanne's just like, this is fucking awesome. This is my show.
Well, I mean, she created it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So.
It's all based on her life, you know?
And she was a stand-up comic. We talked about that last time. How long was she a stand-up comic, or how successful was she?
Well, did we talk about in the last episode that she was... I know we talked about it, but I don't know if I mentioned it in the last episode that she was originally supposed to be Peggy Bundy.
Oh, right. Yep, you mentioned that, and we did mention that in the episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think she had a pretty, like, good trajectory. Like, she started out and, like, immediately she got famous, you know? Like, because Well, and also, she wasn't young. Like, she wasn't, like, young when you think of stand-up comedian young. She, like, was in her 30s by the time the show got made. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. She's about the same age we are. Like, she's in her mid-30s right now.
Sure. And just think about how the difference is in maybe getting discovered are at that time versus now. I mean, if you want to get discovered, you can go on YouTube. You still can do the stand-up circuit, and you think you do, but the fact is that just because you can do 10 shows back then, and that is only those people that came to that show that get to see it.
Oh yeah.
But now you could do a show for 10 people, but if someone has a camera, it could go, and it's really good, it could go viral.
Well, and also, like, she's not traditionally pretty, which is already, like, especially then, was already a dock against her. So
sure,
she, like, at the time, I mean, I've never seen her stand up before.
Yeah.
But her stand up must have been, like, really funny for her to, like, be able to break all those molds. Like, she's not traditionally pretty. She's not talking about traditional,
right,
at the time, women comedy stuff.
Well, what were the main female comedians at that time? I mean, I know some from before, like Carol Burnett and like at the time, Lily Tomlin, but that's probably before that time.
Well, that was probably shortly after. It was like that. She was probably like right before. She's right before like Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay.
Around the time maybe Paula Poundstone was coming up. I don't even know of another popular mid '80s, late '80s woman comedian.
When did Ellen start her show? Because remember she had a short-lived show.
She did
a sitcom like Seinfeld. It was like the female version of Seinfeld.
She actually has an appearance later on in the series. So like right before her. It must have been right before her series took off or before she had a series. Because I think I remember watching that show. It was like 93, 94. I remember like the big episode where she came out. Like that was like a big deal.
Is that what she came out on the show? Okay, I remember her coming out. I just don't remember how it happened. So this is the second episode. What are they? Oh, so
this is our first appearance of Michael Fishman as DJ.
Oh, right. Yeah, we talked about that. And one thing I noticed, so in the first episode, I noticed that, that's definitely not the DJ that I was familiar with.
Yep.
But now I am seeing the DJ that I was familiar with. But boy, is he young, and his voice he's really, really young.
Oh, yeah. Cute kid, too. Like, like they definitely recasted right, in as much as, like, that's the adorable little kid that you want in the show.
Sure. I think a lot of times they have kids that are older than what their age is on the show, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they don't say the age, but I remember thinking, I said I'm kind of a casual observer, but I remember at one point when DJ was in maybe middle school, he looked younger than maybe he was supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, as a aficionado, I think Michael Fishman was born in 81 or 80.
Okay.
So that would put him puts about the same age as you, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which is just a couple years older than me. So I don't know. Like I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but it's season 1, so 87. He's supposed to be 6 or 7 right here.
Wow. Well, yeah, he sounds like a 6 or 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So in this episode, they're trying to decide, what to buy. With that $500, they look at the bills and say, "Oh, actually, well, we only have $11 left." And then it's this kind of challenge of, are we gonna do it right and pay our bills, or are we gonna treat yourself?
Can you relate as a married person? Can you relate to this episode?
I think as any individual who has struggled with money, I think you can relate to knowing that you shouldn't spend money on something and doing it anyway, or when you are responsible, just said, "Oh, I'm responsible, but this does not feel good to do."
Yeah, I don't want to do it like this, yeah.
Yeah. So it's frustrating. But I'm just, when they were going through their little list, I was thinking $500. Obviously there's the difference in, what's the word, inflation. But just in general, I wondered, like, how many bills are they going to pay with that $500? Because I don't think $500 would go that far. No.
Well, and it's also $1988.
Right. That's why I mentioned inflation, but...
I don't know. I mean, and I don't like. It depends on like what kind of bills they're talking about too.
Well, sure. They mentioned the credit card bill, which they were gonna say it didn't come. They mentioned like the water and the electricity.
So I guess it's like it's not that far fetched. I guess like.
But they have a whole house, so I mean, typical electric bills for a whole house can be $100 just by itself. So I don't know. Maybe that all adds up. Maybe it's not that different. So one thing I noticed in this particular episode, there's some scenes in the garage, but I can't really wrap my mind around how the whole house is set up. So like they look in the first episode, they walk through that door in the kitchen to go directly to the garage. Okay. I think.
Well, that door that we just saw right behind them,
yeah,
goes to like a mud room. Like it's like, it's not like, it doesn't go to the garage. It goes to like the room where you take all your boots off and shit like that. You know?
Oh, okay.
And then like the garage actually is outside, so you have to actually leave the house to walk out to the garage.
Okay, so they had their coda or whatever their ending for the episode 1 of season 1 where they were looking at the boat. So that was not connected to the kitchen.
No, it's actually separate. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was not clear to me.
And you'll see it like with even in this season, you'll see like how it's set up.
Sure.
But it also like it kind of like blows my mind too. Is just like because this show goes through a lot of different sets, so you're just like, how big was their budget that they had so many sets at one point? Because and how did, like, that's another thing that's hard to like think about. Is like how do you shoot that? Like, do you do you have all the sets made, or do you have to like, okay, we're gonna shoot all these scenes for the season at this set because we have to tear it down, turn it into another set.
Well, I know I've seen some behind-the-scenes documentaries for like It's Always Sunny, and that's exactly how they do it. They'll do so they shoot some stuff in Philly, and then they shoot all the exteriors, and that's the whole season, all the exteriors. And then later they'll go to the set where they have just the bar and shoot all of the bar scenes. So, you know, from day to day they might. It's a lot to wrap your mind around for if you're an actor or an actress. But maybe with Roseanne, maybe they did just do one episode at a time because who knows when you're going to get canceled.
Yeah, well, especially like these early seasons. But this show, the only time it wasn't in like the top 5 was their last season.
Really?
Up until then, they ruled the charts.
So even the season 1, it was a hit.
Season 1, they were a hit.
Okay. I mean, like I said, late 80s, what was there really on? There was MTV on cable.
Full House. You had Full House. But they weren't competing against Full House because they were on the same station.
Okay, but let's just, outside of, you got your broadcast channels, which are just 3. What was on cable at that time?
Oh, man.
Because there's MTV, for sure. That started, 86, 85?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
What other channel? Fox was just starting.
Okay.
It's hard to say like what they were competing against.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the other, like, you know, like NBC or CBS, you know.
Yeah. Because even if a lot of people did have cable, I don't think it was very many in comparison. It was probably a slow progression, sort of like now in 2016. People have Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, and those are the things that are competing, and TV's dying. But there's still a lot of people that have TVs. They still measure the ratings, but I don't know, it took a long time. What, Netflix started, 2005? Streaming? 2007? I don't know when it was. So it takes a long time for that to develop. So I think cable in general took a long time to kind of take off to become competition. So yeah, as you say, it really only had to compete with, you said this was on ABC?
ABC, yep.
So it only had to compete with CBS and NBC and I guess probably Fox. And what was on at that time? Do you remember what night? I mean, you're a fanatic, but...
No, I don't remember what night. I want to say Wednesday.
Okay.
I remember watching the later seasons on Wednesday. It was just a different time. Like, who knows what they're really competing against?
Yeah,
I guess the Cosby Show would be one show they're competing against.
Okay.
But even once again, like, that's back in the day, that was a big competitor.
Right.
We didn't know Bill Cosby like we know him now. Like,
was he on CBS? What was Cosby on?
I want to say NBC.
NBC. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know some of those bigger shows would end up switching channels. Like if they get canceled on one and they get picked up on the other, and it was just a huge deal. And now it's really not as big a deal. You got Fox shows that move over to a cable channel or TBS or whatever. Conan was on NBC and now it's on TBS. And guess who cares? And that's probably 10 years old of a situation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's I I know it's kind of just interesting to like looking back at TV in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and like it's kind of like funny too because like you kind of see like her bit come through in this little piece right here where she's buying that perfume and
right.
This you kind of see the tradition like, oh, that's what we all do is to please our man, and like Roseanne's kind of spitting water in that face, like
yeah, like that. You know, I said how the first episode was really real. It seemed really real and natural. This episode seemed a little bit more contrived, just a smidge. Not in a bad way, just as in like, oh, sometimes you see the script on the page as it's coming out, and in this scene, you're like, no, I was thinking to myself, no actual salesperson would talk like that in that situation. They would really try to get you by, but maybe not in such a way. But
is it like back in the 80s? Would you think that would still like in that time frame? Do you think that still is probably wouldn't happen?
Well, I don't know. I just there was just specific things. The lines she was saying felt as though they were setups for her jokes.
Okay, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Whereas the first episode felt more like real lines, even though they were setups. And maybe that was just me getting acclimated to their writing style, but I did appreciate that from the first episode, and most of this episode is that way too. I also appreciate in this garage scene with what's her name, Darlene, that it's very shadowy. It's very there's a lot of, it's not straight up just well lit like an old 90s or 80s sitcom. You know, it's not overly lit. I like it.
Yeah.
I trying to think of other, like Home Improvement. Did they spend time in the garage? They did, didn't they? And that was super,
there was time in the garage
because he was building that hot rod.
Yeah, there's like seasons devoted to him building that hot rod.
Right, and I think that was just overly lit. Whereas if you look at we're looking at that scene in this episode 2. If you watch this episode and they're in the garage, it just looks dingy. There's junk everywhere, and I mean, I guess I could relate to that.
Well, in Home Improvement, it's almost the inverse of this show, where like this show is kind of like against misogyny and like very much about like empowering women.
Okay.
Whereas Home Improvement, it is that way to extent, but it's almost like the inverse because like Tim Allen is very much like his character is very much misogynist. Yeah, and very much like.
Is he misogynist or just manly?
I think it's a little bit of both because like he doesn't think women know any better, and often his moral lesson is just like I'm an idiot. Like that's kind of what he learns a lot through the show is just like I'm.
So maybe the writing isn't necessarily misogynistic, but like the portrayal is that he does some misogynistic things, and then we learn that you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, and I don't know. It was the 90s. It was once again kids. It was a different time. The 90s, 80s. They were just way different from it is now.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that there are a lot of sitcoms now that happen, but they've passed me by. Like Mike and Molly. Have you seen any episodes of that?
Nope.
2.5 Men. I know that's gone and long gone, but have you seen any of that?
No.
What's another one that's supposed to be?
How I Met Your Mother. I've seen all of How I Met Your Mother.
You have seen all of that?
Mm-hmm.
I maybe saw like 1 or 2 episodes in the beginning and then just gave up. If I can't see Bob Saget, I'm not into it.
I'm not into it. Have you seen the reboot of Full House?
Fuller House? No, I haven't.
Really?
No, my wife did watch it. She binge watched it. I watched maybe half an episode. It was in the background. I was just, walking around, and I caught a little bit of it. I guess I see the formula is definitely still there, but it's with, it's just flip genders. One thing that I'm silently rooting for them to do in the second season, even though I haven't seen the first. I've looked at the IMDb page and seen that, Bob Saget and Dave Coulier and John Stamos are only in a few episodes. I want them to have a bigger presence.
Yeah.
That would get me to sign on. Because DJ, I'm sure, what is her name, Candace Cameron? I'm sure she's just a wonderful human being. I just don't see her as... I don't care about her as much. I love Stephanie as a kid. Yeah. Stephanie was awesome. If they would have brought Michelle back, it would have been...
Well, she opted not to come back.
I know. I know this. Just because I haven't seen the reboot
doesn't mean you're not following the scuttlebutt. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm well aware of the scuttlebutt about that. I like Kenny too.
You know what's weird too is like they do things that like the adults didn't do in the original. Like they go out to like a club one night in the new season, and
Really?
like go drinking. Like they do shots of tequila.
Wow.
And like that's something that like the adults in the old Full House were such squares. Like
So maybe how we're talking about how in the first episode they mentioned doing it, and they mentioned family ties and talking about sex, and Full House was the epitome of wholesome.
Oh yeah, it's so saccharine. It's disgusting at points. Like people are just like way too sensitive and way too sweet, and like people get their feelings hurt at the drop of a hat, and I'm just
right.
And then like that, not only do their feelings get hurt, but they just can't muscle through it by themselves. They're so hapless that like there needs to be a family meeting about it. Like I'm just like, grow a pair. Like
well, yeah, but I also like, if we're going back to that conversation about theme songs, I really do enjoy the theme song, even if you like Full House quite a bit though.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I don't like it.
I like the theme song now. A lot of those theme songs, you mentioned that, just to bring that conversation full circle, as much as it may be annoying now and when you're binge watching to have to see those things over and over again, I think it still happens with a lot of dramas now. Dexter has a full minute intro, and I know that's kind of an older show.
6 Feet Under, also.
Sure. Stranger Things, how long is that intro?
It's easily.
It's a while, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it just gets you in that mood. And maybe drama is more important to get you in the mood versus a comedy. But anyway, to kind of wrap up, we're kind of wrapping up the episode of that we're watching, not of the podcast, but the way it worked out was she was in that, she ended up getting that perfume, and then Dan ended up getting a bell.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is like also at the end of the episode, like they do stuff like this, but like once again, as the show progresses, they start doing like these opening bits, like or closing bits.
Mm-hmm. Do they have cold opens too, though?
Yeah, they have cold opens. There'll be cold opens later on. Like I think the first cold open is in season 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, was that a development in TV in general? That
I want to say so.
Okay.
Like,
because prior to that it was just the TV show starts with the theme song, and then it goes to commercial, and then it comes back, show, we get a second act, or we get a first act break or whatever, and then we get to the second act, and then there's a break, and then it finishes. Or I don't remember how many commercials are in that, but
yeah, I don't know either. But like, yeah, the cold open must have been like a progression as the series is running, like just within TV in general.
So here's a question, just looking at how shows were made in late 80s, early 90s, all the way up to, I guess, the advent of binge watching on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and the like. What is it like for writers now who were in the old guild that had to kind of worry about those, first act breaks and second act breaks that hold for dissolve so we can go to commercial. I know some of that stuff is more in dramas, but they have to have a break. And if you don't have to have a break when you're binge watching, or if you make a show that's specifically for Netflix, such as Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, how do you break stuff up? Do they still follow that rule?
I don't think they do. I was just listening to an episode of a podcast with Norm Macdonald, and he was talking a lot about like old TV writers, like how it used to be. Mm-hmm. And it's just not the same anymore, is what he was saying. Like, you used to be able to like write for a TV show and you get paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's just not the same way anymore. Like, now you're in a room of writers,
right?
As opposed to just like you and one other person collaborating. And so like now it's just like, like South Park has like 20 writers.
But they have a head writer, and then they have a focus group, and
and it's all that stuff. And it's not that way anymore, like it's not like now we're working a 9 to 5 pretty much when you're a writer for a TV show, it's just.
So you don't think it was a 9 to 5 job back then?
I'm sure you're working a lot, but you're also getting paid a lot more,
Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of decisions like that, hold to dissolve and stuff like that, were probably made directorial. Like, I think the director or producers made those calls. Like,
sure.
Oh, well, stop at this joke.
Yeah.
Hold for dissolve.
Yeah. But they obviously have to collaborate with writers to make sure that happens at a specific time, because you don't want to have a commercial come back for a minute and then go right to commercial. Although I have seen that in shows, because I've cut the cord. I don't know if you don't have cable. Yeah, I've cut the cord maybe 5 years ago, and once in a while, if I'm over at a relative's place and I see a show and I'm kind of interested, and then it goes to commercial, I'm like, what in the heck is this crap? Obviously, I remember it happening. It's annoying.
Oh yeah, I cut the cord a long time ago. Like, partly just because I don't feel like what I'm getting from cable is worth the money.
I suppose if I liked sports more, and I followed sports as a kid, but but you can still get that online.
Yeah,
you can follow your team online. Oftentimes, you can stream games online. So to have a cable subscription for that very few things that you really care about is silly.
Yeah. And I like watching football from time to time too, but I live across the street from a bar. So I'll just go, if I want to catch the game, I'll just go to the bar.
Sure.
Otherwise, anything else I can just watch online. I don't need cable.
That's fair enough. So a couple things that I wanted to mention that are related to Roseanne are, in this episode, we notice Jackie's hair and her shirt are very indicative of the time.
Oh yeah, like that. I don't know what's going on with her hair in this episode. But, well, it's all pretty much all of season 1. Her hair is just like this weird fro.
I think my sisters did try to do that. I don't think they did a fro, but they use a lot of hairspray and poof things out.
Well, I think that that was like a thing in the 80s, was to have big hair.
It reminds me of that. What's the name in that Dilbert, the gal?
I don't know her name, but I know you're talking about
that triangle hair.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it was. And she had this shirt on that was denim, but mixed with different weird colors for pockets. It definitely was indicative of that time. Whereas I know you said, it looks like Dan and Roseanne both wear like flannels a lot. And that just kind of looks. I don't think it's necessarily like hipper with it now, but I don't think it. I think you could get away with it now.
I think the flannel is kind of timeless. Like flannel will never be really gone. Like,
well, that's just a really, really good feeling. Just a side note, when was flannel? Do you know when flannel came about?
I don't know when originally.
Because if we want to go back to a show that would maybe help us with that, Little House on the Prairie, their buddy with the beard, he wears flannel.
Oh wow! And that when's that? That takes place in the early 1900s, isn't it?
Either that or late 1800s. I'm not even sure. So I don't know what you're singing.
I'm thinking of remember we shot that. Side note, Zeke and I also make movies from time to time.
Zach is my name.
Zach and I also make movies from time to time. And we shot this Western for somebody. And
we didn't.
Zeke put together this
teaser
to the Little House on the Prairie theme
song,
yeah. Which was fun.
So the other thing I was going to say, this is something we missed from the first episode, was that George Clooney?
George Clooney is in season 1.
So he comes back.
He'll be back. Yep, he's in a lot of season 1.
He looked so young.
Yeah, he's very young. I think this is the show. Roseanne said in an interview, there's a commentary on season 1, and she's talking about him and how she wanted him to be more in the series. And she kept on telling all the producers, I'm like, this guy is going to be huge one day. This is the next big thing. And nobody would listen to her.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you first said that she wanted him to be more, I thought maybe that he already was up and coming, and he's like, no, I don't. This is just a day job. I'm going to be a movie star soon. Mm-hmm. What was his first big thing?
I want to say his first big thing was actually ER.
Oh yeah.
But he had been a bunch. I think at this point he had just been in a bunch of failed movies, movies that were so bad they didn't even get released.
When was From Dusk Till Dawn?
Well, this is before Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay, all right.
But this is the thing that gave him his big start. I think was actually this show. I could be wrong. I don't know. But he was in a bunch of failed movies before this.
What kind of movies? Action movies, love movie?
I want to say there were one of them was a horror movie.
Okay.
I want to say he was in a sequel to Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. Something like
that old gem, that old chestnut.
Yeah, that old chestnut. He, but she talks about like in an interview, like she knew he was gonna be big, but nobody would listen to her.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and it turns out he's not very big. No one knows him. I mean, after Monuments Men, that would be the thing that made him famous. Finally,
Monuments Men.
I did not mind that movie. I don't know why people hate it so much.
I didn't hate it, but I'm just like, this is kind of boring. Like,
I know, but it's one of those things where you hang out with friends. I suppose that's the same thing. I liken it to Grown Ups, where you've got David Spade, Chris Rock, all that group of people getting together just to hang out. Monuments Men was like all these drama people, but also comedy people like Bill Murray and John Goodman and George Clooney, and I don't know whoever else was in it. Those are the only ones I remember, but I know there was more. So they probably had more fun making it than people did watching it.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. They probably did have a lot of fun making that movie.
But George Clooney, he directed that, right?
Did he?
I thought so. I thought that was like one of his directorial. It might not have been his debut, but I thought it was.
No, it's not. His debut was a movie called Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Really, I've heard that title thrown around. I have no idea what it's about.
It's about this real guy. His name is Chuck Barris. He was a TV producer. He made shows like The Gone Show or The Dating Game or The Newlywed Game.
Okay.
Anyway, he testifies. This is based on a book that he wrote, that he was also a CIA operative at the time. So the whole movie is like about him being like the CIA agent going around killing people and also like producing these TV shows at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's actually a really good movie. The guy, the lead in it, who plays Chuck Barris, his name is Sam Rockwell.
I love Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell is awesome in that movie.
It's great. We could talk all day, but so let's kind of wrap it up with Roseanne. This particular episode, I wouldn't say it was for me as strong as the first episode, but I liked it. Mm-hmm. It seemed like okay, we got money. What are we going to spend it on? That story's probably been told before.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I think every sitcom has that, let's tell the same story but with these different characters, and it's more about the characters than it is about the plot lines. So I give it a thumbs up. But
oh yeah. I mean, this is like the beginning of the series run too. Like the pilot, like they show that during Sweeps Week. This is actually the run of the series.
Okay, so was the pilot done, and then like months later after it was picked up, they started producing, or do they produce a few with the hopes that? Well,
I mean, I imagine that like in this case particularly, they ran the pilot because otherwise you would think that the original DJ would be throughout season 1.
True.
So like they must have produced the pilot separately, and then like afterwards are like, okay, well, let's recast, let's do this, this, that.
Well, okay, you'd think there'd maybe other changes too, like to the set and stuff, and maybe there were. I guess I didn't really notice them.
Well, like you'll notice like the opening intro for the pilot is different.
Oh, really?
And like the one I have, like the pilot, even like the text, like the font they use for Roseanne is different.
Really?
It looks really fucking 80s.
Okay.
So there was like small changes like that, but
sure. Well, I'm kind of excited to see what's coming up with the rest of the season, because you say it doesn't get good till well, okay, you didn't say it doesn't get good, but you said it gets really good season 3, season 4. So I know
season 4. I think I would say season 4 is when it really starts to come into its own.
Okay. Well, I'm still looking forward to season 1. I mean, I fear that at some point, I like the ramp up on shows. Mm-hmm. It's when it starts to go downhill that I'm like, and you mentioned that near the end of this series is where
it just gets weird.
Sure.
And like that, I can't put it any other way, other than, and you'll see, it just gets weird.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, all right. I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode of Roseanne. Just two guys talking about Roseanne.
Two bros talking about Roseanne.
So if you like the podcast, make sure you go to our Facebook page.
Give us a like.
Facebook.com/BROS-ANNE.
I think that's correct.
Okay. Give us a like and maybe share it with some friends you think might like it.
Yeah, share it with some friends. We're having good times over here.
Otherwise, we're on SoundCloud. Alrighty. I'm Zach Zichter.
I'm Jay Warren.
And we'll see you next time.
Yep. Have a good week.
Peace.